Hey, my name is Chigozie Obioma. I'm a writer of fiction of these three novels. I'm from Nigeria, and I am the cover star of issue 15 of 54 magazine. What does written legacy mean to you, and what does it mean specifically from an African perspective? There's a sense in which people often believe that we did not develop a civilization in Africa prior to the coming of the West. I think that one of my projects as a writer has been to somehow challenge those perceptions, which is why, in fact, all three novels, but especially my second novel, is key because it's a history of the Igbo people of Southeast Nigeria going over 700 years. So I feel like, to me, we need to write it not because those stories necessarily will be lost. There will always be people who talk about them, but to be able to export them to the world. So we receive the legacies of others, like Shakespeare, for instance, everybody reads. Therefore, we need to export ours. Okay. The essence of the British is Shakespeare. So the essence of Nigeria or Gabon can also be through its literature. The relationship between oral tradition and the written page, what is carried and what is at risk of being lost in the move from one to the other. I think that because people are changing their minds and new generations are being born, the only way to actually monumentalize the traditions and the history of the people and their culture is through the written, because the oral is sustainable, but people can lose interest in being custodians of those stories. But if they are written down, they become things that are preserved in libraries, in books. They can't be lost. So it becomes a living archive. The idea of the African writer as a keeper of memory, do you feel that responsibility, and what does it ask of you? Yes, in fact. My third novel is a good example, The Road to the Country. Even though this war, the Nigerian Civil War of 67 to 70, was a war of a scale that almost dwarfed, many wars, Vietnam, for example. Nobody knew about it. There wasn't enough fiction written about it, especially the battles themselves. So I needed to do that. So I have written probably the only actual war novel of the Nigerian Biafra War. Language and inheritance, what has been handed out to you through story across generations and across the diaspora, and what are you handing on? I think that what has been handed down to me, what one of the flavors of my writing, is the ability to move between languages. Sometimes I think in Igbo, and I begin a thought in Igbo, segue into English, and end in Yoruba. So the triangularity of that translated into the English language gives my writing a uniqueness that an American, for example, cannot afford. So that, to me, is my inheritance. Why this matters now? Why does Africa need its stories written, kept, read at this particular moment? Again, as I said before, because something that is written becomes material. A material is more easily archived than something that is invisible. So we have stories, we have ideas. They are immaterial, but then we translate them into materials. So they become like buildings that survive over, like if you go to Morocco, for example, and you see these temples that have been there for 2,000 years. That's what written legacies become.